In France this Sunday, the far right did more than just finish first in European elections. It garnered 1 vote in 4. In Britain, the Eurosceptics of UKIP fared even better, close to 28%. The far right was tops in Denmark and Austria. In Greece, it was left-wing Eurosceptics who won, although their neo-Nazis took 2 seats. But is this the continent? Here is the continent's second largest nation, France, and Marine Le Pen winning close to 25% of the vote with a simple slogan: France yes, Brussels no. Eurosceptics will still make up a small minority in the next parliament, and you may argue about the relative significance or power of the European Parliament, but the impact will weigh on policy, both in France and in Europe. President François Hollande has promised to take the results into account. How? Both in the short term and in the long run. Why did so many vote for Eurosceptic parties of various shades? What policy for a Europe that's reeling from austerity? And what place on the world stage for this Europe going forth? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the rise of the far right. With us to talk about it, Elie HATEM. He was a National Front candidate in recent municipal elections in Paris. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
He's a French socialist, member of Parliament. Philip Cordery, welcome back to the France 24 debate.
Hello.
Welcome as well from Bristol to Jim Shields, who teaches at Aston University, author of The Extreme Right in France, From Pétain to Le Pen. Welcome back as well to Felix Marquardt, co-founder of EuropeansNow.eu. And from London, newly elected member of the European Parliament, Stephen Woolfe of Britain's Eurosceptic UKIP party. Thank you for joining our conversation.
Thank you and good evening.
The France 24 debate, where you can join as well on Facebook and on Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. Let's start with the latest numbers. Final figures for France put the National Front just shy of 25% of the vote. The ruling Socialists below 14%, for a turnout just above 42%, which means 24 seats in the European Parliament for the National Front, a parliament where the center-right once again came out tops. There you see the pie chart with the center-left getting the second biggest number of votes, 1 vote in 5. Let me begin with you, Jim Shields, because this is a subject that you've studied over the years. Did you see this coming?
We all saw it coming, but anyone who's ever run a race knows how difficult it is to win from the front. And that is, of course, what both the Front National and UKIP have done here. They have led the polls, and then they have delivered when we might have expected that some of their support would melt away, given the predictions that they were going to win or come very close to winning. So what is remarkable at the outset here is the fact that both of these parties have come from behind to take up the lead in the run-up to the polls, and then have both finished first.
Let me put the question to you then, Elie HATEM. Why did you get so many votes?
I think because French people, the same like the other populations of the states who are members of the European Union, are rejecting the European Union as it is right now, as it became like a federation of states and violating the sovereignty and the freedom of those countries. We all know that there are many problems inside the European, I would say, continent, especially those countries that belong to the European Union, as a problem with the foreigners, for example, economic, financial problems, and recently there are those problems. Plus, add to that, as a lawyer, I can say that there is a kind of intersection between the European laws and the national laws. So all people, they are fed up of the European Union as it is today, and they are seeking for the transformation of this institution from this kind of federation that harms the personal I would say, the moral personality of the states who are gathered together with the European Union in order to have more I would say, freedom and then more sovereignty to all those states. And this is why I think there is this big number of people who've refused to participate to the vote. Secondly, it's not only in France, but in all the other countries of the European Union,
right.
They are rejecting this institution, and they are willing to transform it maybe in an institution.
Fear of a loss of sovereignty. Do you agree, Philip Cordery?
Absolutely not, and I think it's completely the wrong debate. The debate is what kind of Europe we want, and I think the national...
But why did people vote for the National Front?
Because we're in the middle of a crisis, and people are simply, they did not see a result in the Conservative government. They do not see at the moment results in our government, even though we think they're coming, and they will come. And so they're voting for the parties that have never been in power. I think this is a natural thing, unfortunately, when there's a crisis which is so big as today. But it's a shameful day for France today. I mean, to have such a high percentage for a party which is presenting hatred as the only solution, exclusion as the only solution. And I regret today that the UMP did not have a European debate during this campaign, because this would have been the solution.
The centre-right party.
The centre-right party, the UMP. I mean, we had a very European campaign with Martin Schulz, the candidate of the European Socialists, being present in France, because Europe deserves a debate today. There are real problems in the European Union, and the question of what European Union we want is the only question that we should have been delivering, not what the government is doing. And the fact that the UMP wanted a national debate on the government, and the National Front too, because that's the only, they didn't talk about Europe, they talked about getting the government out and getting out of Europe. And they know that neither one nor the other is feasible and will come out of this election. I think the problem was what we had in the campaign and what the Conservatives made of it.
Felix Marquardt.
I think, I mean, I'm not a Front National person, voter, but I think frankly, I think it's very condescending to say that the Front National is building only on hatred right now. It's just...
The party is.
Well, the fact of the matter is, 1 voter in 4 in France has voted for them, and the least we can do as Democrats is respect the fact that people have. Now, it's not my cup of tea, let's be quite clear. But for me, the first thing is to be humbled by these results and to accept them. The fact is that people are going for this party. For me, the main reason that they are is because, in truth, there are 2 kinds of Eurosceptics in Europe, all over the continent. There's the Eurosceptics, Europhobes, who say that they are Europhobes, people from the Front National, a whole bunch of people from the UMP, a whole bunch of people from left-wing parties who hate Europe. But then you have a whole other class of people who pretend to be Europhiles and who in truth are never defending Europe, ever. And those are basically most other politicians, because the truth of the matter is, if we want a Europe that works, we need a parliament, a European parliament, that has far more power than it has today. And what does that entail? It means a reduction of the weight and the power of national parliaments. And most national politicians are not eager to see that happen. They do not want to relinquish power. And so the result is that you have people who purport to be pro-European, who spend their time. I've spoken to tens of young politicians in France who wanted to run in these elections and who were told by their respective hierarchies that, no, you're not going to run in the European elections. That's the second-class election. You save yourself for the national elections, for the legislative elections that are coming up in 2017. When you have a whole bunch of people like that who basically condescend the whole European process and purport to be pro-European when indeed, in truth, they're acting quite Eurosceptic most of the time, the result is that people, voters, they can smell this. And basically they say, oh, listen, if you're not going to truly support Europe, I'm going to go for the people who actually are truly, openly anti-European.
All right, Stephen Wolfe, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think what we're facing across Europe is quite simply a split between the people of Europe and political elites. There is a very legitimate argument that was raised by one of your previous speakers that said, what type of Europe do we want? Do we want a Europe that cooperates with each other, that actually has trading relationships with each other, and that is friends with each other? And that is the sort of Europe that I would like to see. But there is another type of Europe, and that's the Europe that we have. It's the Europe of Viviane Reding, who says that we must push forward for a new country, the United States of Europe. And that isn't the Europe that most of the people want. They have quite simply said in this election that that direction is not the direction that they want to travel. And there are very clear reasons for that. There's a very clear distinction between how hard it was for people to get their democracy. Here in the UK, we fought for hundreds of years to fight kings, then rotten boroughs in Parliament, in order to ensure that every man and woman over the age of 18 could vote for a parliamentarian who we could elect, choose the laws that we wanted, and if we didn't like them or the laws, we could then vote them out. It's absolutely clear that in the European Union, you have a commission primarily made of bureaucrats who I can't vote for, you can't vote for, and the people of Europe can't vote for, who predominantly create the law in secret, often in relationships with lobbyists.
So are you agreeing? Are you in effect agreeing with Felix Marquardt that you need a European Parliament that has more of a mandate?
No, actually, there is an element of Philip where I can understand where he's coming from. And Philip is quite right that if you actually wanted to go for a reformed Europe in which you created a new country in which there was a democratic mandate, then if you wanted that direction, you would have to mirror that of the United States. You would effectively be removing the commission of any creation of laws and putting them into the civil service basis and having parliamentarians, and so that you could have a position where you could elect people to create laws or remove laws. But I actually think that the peoples of Europe recognise that this is one of the most vibrant areas of the world. We have distinct kind of cultures, backgrounds, histories, and all of them are things that we want and want to continue. But actually, by having a European Union, you're just homogenizing everything. You're actually blurring the lines between anything that's exciting and interesting and creating something that is relatively dull. One person said to me, and it was actually a taxi driver in a journey that I was doing, he said, the European Union is trying to make us the Starbucks of the world.
Philip Cordery.
Yeah, can I just maybe get something straight before we go any further? That there are a majority of the people did vote for pro-European parties. I don't want to have the impression that the anti-Europeans were a majority in this election. This was not the truth. Now,
your party did 14%.
Okay, no, I'm not. I'm talking about pro-European parties in general. Are still a large majority in Europe. And if the anti-European parties are stronger, this is something that we have to address, and I said it, and I'm going to say it again. And there's not just one message that we heard. It's not a message of get out of Europe. I've heard many messages during the campaign, and they all converge in we need to change some things in Europe. And that's what we need to address. We need more social policies, maybe. We need also less bureaucracy in the European Commission. But we need to strengthen the European Union as a tool.
Are you willing, as a member of Parliament of the French National Assembly, to give up some of your prerogatives in favor of the parliamentarians who sit in Brussels and Strasbourg?
Yes, and we've given quite a lot on the budget in recent times. We have now. I mean, the national budgets are sort of looked upon by the European Union, and that's the right thing. But we need to go even further on, because we cannot have a budgetary union, a monetary union without a fiscal union or a social union, because we're creating competition, and the competition is always going to the bottom, and that's unacceptable. And that's what people are getting at, because if they voted for National Front or for UKIP, it's mainly because they lost their jobs because of the Posting Workers Directive, or because of there was no minimum wage in the neighbouring countries. So those are the problems that we have to address to avoid the anti-European parties.
All right, lots of reactions coming in. One on Facebook from Eve. If the Socialist Party or the Conservative UMPs are scratching their heads wondering how this happened, then it's obvious that the National Front was the only choice remaining. Felix.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know quite what this Eve person is getting at. All I can say is Europe was built on crisis. It was the whole European project. Jean Monnet said in the very early days of the Union, it will be built on crisis. The fact of the matter is, we are witnessing right now, the coming of age of the first generation of Europeans who are growing up to living under the living standards, below the living standards of their parents. This is happening right now. This creates a lot of very angry people, especially among the youth and especially in Southern Europe. The fact of the matter is, Europe is like a shark. Either it moves forward or it dies. This is our choice. Now, all the people, I think that the truth of the matter is, the only parties that are proposing to their constituents something more than just sort of for the tide to be slightly less tight in a year or 2 years or 5 years are the nationalists and the sovereignists. And you have to grant them that. It's true. They are the only ones that are saying we can be much better. Now, what I think is that the recipe to get there is a disaster. I'm sorry, but it's basically the program of the National Front is a series of sort of quixotic proposals they are recipes that have been tested over the years, which have proven systematically to be disastrous in terms of the results.
I've noticed on that point, Elie HATEM, that the National Front is no longer saying outright leave the Eurozone. They're now saying let's have a referendum, which is a big nuance.
I think so, because
Are you for leaving the euro?
It's very difficult, you know, for the economists, for example, an economics point of view, to leave the euro right now. I think we have to progress and we have to study again all the treaties.
So you're for staying in the euro?
We tested already the European Union, and I think the
Are
European
you for staying
Union,
or for leaving the euro?
We have to change the European Union. I don't speak about Europe. I speak mostly about the
money,
European
the common
Union.
currency. Are you for leaving the common currency?
For the euro, you mean? For the euro, for the moment, it's very difficult to cut right now from euro. And there are two tendencies inside the National Front. You know, there are some economists saying that it's impossible to leave euro right now. Then we have to take it a little by little. And some other people, they say we can withdraw from the eurozone. I think England has the we can follow the English system. England
with their social policies also. Then.
Excuse me.
Right.
With the social policies of the UK, that's your model.
We're going to pick up on this when we come back. Stay with us. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.
It's actually not.
It is.
No.